Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are immersing ourselves in a pretty significant political text. It was released strategically right after the 2024 election. We're talking about the memoir Under Siege, My Family's Fight to Save Our Nation by Eric Trump, and it includes a foreword from Donald J. Trump himself. So our mission here is to really dissect this book. It's not just an autobiography, right? It feels more like a core political artifact. It's part polemic, part defense, and definitely, I think, a rallying cry for the movement. We need to quickly unpack its central argument and look at the specific, very high drama experiences it uses to back up its claims.
Yeah, and what's really striking right away is the sheer scale of the book's core thesis.
Yeah.
Eric Trump doesn't frame the opposition his family faced as, typical political friction. He actually defines it as a coordinated multi-front war, a sustained siege.
A siege, okay.
Right. And this narrative points the finger at, well, a three-pronged attack structure. The so-called deep state, the fake news media, and maybe most critically, what he calls a weaponized judicial system. So, a primary goal of the book seems to be cementing Eric's own role as a key guardian of the Trump legacy moving forward.
Okay, so if the political world is the battlefield, let's focus on that legal front. It seems to really dominate the book, and the sheer number of legal fights is, well, unprecedented. How does Under Siege manage to reframe these challenges to fit this narrative of a political conflict, not just legal trouble?
Well, that raises a really interesting point about maybe political language itself. The book spends a lot of time analyzing something it calls lawfare. It describes this lawfare as a very deliberate strategy, using endless lawsuits and investigations not as, a neutral search for justice.
But as a tactic.
Exactly. As a political tactic aimed specifically at distraction, draining resources, exhaustion, Eric gives these really charged accounts of certain judges, prosecutors, courtrooms, painting them as cold and corrupt, and, crucially, as actively working with political opponents.
Okay, so what's the strategic payoff then? Why frame it as lawfare instead of just, say, defending against charges on their merits?
Well, strategically, it effectively shifts the whole focus, doesn't it? Away from the family's actions and onto the motives of the opposition. By calling it lawfare, Eric basically argues the legal system itself is being corrupted to persecute the America First movement, and that instantly turns every indictment or lawsuit into, well, a kind of badge of honor for the base.
So the process itself becomes the proof of the conspiracy.
Exactly. The legal process is the evidence.
And that seems to flow pretty naturally into the idea of an economic siege, too. The book uses the Trump Organization, the family business, as another example of this persecution, but through financial pressure.
Yeah.
How does the book square that with presenting a narrative of resilience, even growth, when it's also claiming targeted boycotts and huge losses?
That's a key part of the counter-narrative. Eric does acknowledge the business took significant hits, financial repercussions, terminated partnerships, all linked, he argues, to political animosity. But he reframes this tough period as a sort of trial by fire, something that showcased the organization's fundamental strengths.
So turning negatives into positives.
In a way, yes. He highlights things like the expansion of Trump Golf and, interestingly, a strategic move into new areas like cryptocurrency. The argument is this shows foresight, innovation, adaptability while under attack, proving they aren't just victims, but are resilient.
Okay, let's touch on the personal side, because the book definitely aims to humanize the family, to underline why they felt they had to fight back. What specific personal stories does it use to really dramatize this siege?
Yeah, what's fascinating there is how the personal toll is presented as the ultimate proof of political hatred. For instance, Eric discusses talk about a near assassination attempt as the, quote, ultimate manifestation of the hatred stirred up by opponents. But probably the most dramatic chapter focuses on the FBI's search of Mar-a-Lago.
Right, that was huge news.
And the account in the book is intensely personal, very emotional. It frames the execution of that search warrant not as some standard legal procedure, but as a traumatic, politically driven violation of their home, their family sanctuary. And if we try to connect all these threads back to the bigger picture, the book's timing, coming out post-election, feels really critical. Eric seems meticulous in weaving the family's personal and business struggles directly into the larger narrative of the America First movement. The argument becomes their suffering is just a small version of the nation's bigger battle for its soul against the establishment.
So wrapping this up, what's the takeaway? Under Siege seems engineered to do a couple of things at once, doesn't it? First, really energize the political base with this unapologetic confrontational tone. And second, provide a complete counter-narrative to how these events were covered in mainstream media.
Absolutely. It reinforces those foundational ideas, the vocabulary of the movement, deep state, witch hunt. They become the core explanation for everything.
So for you, the learner, maybe the core provocative thought to chew on is this. Considering its strategic release after the election, how effective can one person's political memoir actually be in cementing a long-term, maybe even multi-generational political legacy? The book's success isn't just about book sales, right? It's about its power to solidify the justification for whatever comes next for this movement. That seems worth analyzing further.